Hey guys, this is Krystal from the funeralOne's blog. We're at NFDA 2012 with Thogmartin. He's the CEO and founder of Connecting Directors, and we're going to ask him a few questions about social media today. So first of all, Ryan, how you doing?
Great, thank you for having me.
No problem.
Awesome booth as usual.
Thank you.
Even though they can't see it.
They can't see it, but it's a really awesome booth. So my first question for you, Ryan, is, talking to a lot of funeral directors today, I realize social media is kind of like a different language to them. So what basic advice would you give to a funeral director, a funeral professional who's looking to get online and, do the basics?
I think the first step for a funeral director is to get on Facebook and Twitter and use the social network personally so they understand the interaction and engagement that happens. They can understand how the conversation works, because it's not much different for business. The principles and the techniques are the same. The conversation is the same, but the way you present yourself is a little bit different. I think there's a lot of red flags though that they need to watch for. It's amazing how many funeral directors are online and are extremely unprofessional, and a majority of their friends on Facebook are professional colleagues and clients. So I think they could shine a bad light if they're not strategic in how they do it. But I think that the first step would be learning the networks just from a personal standpoint, because really in the community, most funeral directors are a personal brand as well as the funeral home its own brand as well. So being involved personally would be the first step.
Yeah, I agree. So, say I'm a funeral director, I don't have a lot of time to spend on the social network, so if you could pick one social network that's just really important to be on, which one would you say is most important, which one or two?
I would say obviously Facebook is the most important because there are now over 1 billion users, so it's the most that the consumers are on Facebook.
Right.
The conversation changes a little bit for each network. The context is relatively the same, but the presentation of the conversation is a little bit different. So Facebook's going to be the easiest to adapt to. That's where the largest target market is going to be present. And Facebook allows you to do a lot of things branding-wise that you can't necessarily do as easy on other networks. A second network would obviously be Twitter. For the funeral director personally, LinkedIn would be very good from a professional standpoint, because with LinkedIn they're going to be able to connect with that C-level executive for some of the corporations, some of the larger companies. They're involved there because they're looking for recruits and other business people. So it's a very good way to have a connection and start a conversation that is more on a friendship level but really professional.
And a lot of funeral directors, all they're posting on Facebook is just obituaries. This person passed away. Nobody wants to read it. Yeah, that's cool. They can share it with family and friends. But so many funeral directors just don't know what to post. So, what are some types of content that you would recommend them to post on Facebook?
It could vary from funeral home to funeral home. Obviously, obituaries are important, but that can't be your mainstream of content.
Right.
With obituaries, it's a great marketing tool because the conversation happens around obituaries.
Right.
But if there's not other things on the page, regardless of what network it is, to have interaction around, then the obituaries aren't going to get the traction that they should. So from a standpoint of what we do with clients through social media, the easiest way to start coming up and curating content, and it's time consuming for the funeral home, so it's best to work with somebody that's going to be able to help you with the strategy process. But look at the values of your funeral home and the values of your target customer, and create content that is going to be relevant for your values, but focused on the values of your target, your ideal family. What are the values that they have on a funeral service?
And there's this misconception that it's going to take so much time to manage a social network, but really, it doesn't take a lot of time. So, if somebody's just starting out, how long would you say they should dedicate to social media every day or every week?
I don't know there's a time stamp you can put on it, but it doesn't have to be a full-time gig. If you do social media right, obviously it is going to be a time investment, but if you're just starting out and you want to start to get traction, I would recommend that you have a dedicated funeral director that's going to kind of be in charge of the social media. There's going to be one person in every firm. It might be the secretary. She's going to be on Facebook anyway, so why not do something for the business? There's a funeral home in Ohio that does a very good job of kind of, if you can't beat them, join them. They were tired of walking into the arrangement room and seeing a funeral director slip his phone in his pocket.
Right.
So I said, you know what, we're going to allow you an hour a day to be involved on social media outside of your lunch break or something like that. But 20 minutes of that time needs to be doing something for the funeral,
right.
whether it's engaging with the community, sharing the funeral home post. So it doesn't have to be overly time consuming. I would recommend, and what we start with a lot of our clients who want to try to manage it themselves, most of them don't because it is much easier to outsource to somebody, is have somebody come in, you know, if the secretary is supposed to start at 9, come in at 8:30 and just talk about what's on the books for that day. Are you serving families? Is there a funeral service? Is there, you know, something happening in the community that you could talk about? But try to post something at least once a day, and then curate the conversation. Maybe have somebody in the funeral home comment. But you can start the conversation internally, and it'll bring in engagement. But you know, most funeral homes in 15 to 20 minutes a day are going to be able to spend a couple minutes checking emails, spend a couple minutes on Facebook, monitor Twitter. If they're doing Pinterest, post 1 or 2 things on Pinterest. In 20 minutes, you can easily do that, and it starts to create value, and then it'll grow from there.
My final question would be, you know, you understand it, and I understand it. Funeral One understands it. The importance of social media for not just funeral service, but for every profession. But, you know, for those who are really skeptical of it, like, what true value, does funeral service really, you know, what can they find value in for social media?
I think there's a lot of value, and we perceive a lot of value in things that funeral directors might not perceive value. So I think for a funeral home, there's going to be obviously value generating traffic back to their website, especially if they have a sympathy store and there's a way to monetize that traffic,
right.
Or even just get engagement on online memorials and interaction there. So there's a lot of value in getting the traffic back, but I think the ultimate value is when we look at funeral service and what the funeral director does. I mean, we heard today from Alan Creed the negative perceptions that the consumer has. I think the ultimate value of social media is it's putting the funeral director in a position to be involved in the conversation around death.
Right.
Because every community has a conversation. So if we're looking at social media and how we understand it, the conversations you think you're going to have at Rotary are replaced by social media, and you're able to touch more people, and you're actually able to touch the families that are using you and are going to get recommendations from other people in the community that are going to validate what you're talking about on social media.
I agree, totally. Well, thank you, Ryan, for stopping by and doing an interview. If you want to learn any more about social media, I encourage you to check out Connecting Directors. Also check out the Funeral One blog, and thank you again for joining us at NFDA this year.
Thank you.